You are now listening to Project XX Cast podcast series.
Well, I want to quickly ask both of you. So regardless of what friends think, social media think, what your parents think, what would you both look for in like a potential bae or, new partner?
So in a potential bae, I'd look for, I don't know why I'm smiling, guys, I think you can hear it, but I'd look for someone that has goals and dreams. It's basically someone that's not a bum. I feel like you need to have some sort of goal for yourself, whether it's like in play or not in play, but the mindset of achieving something great and becoming successful. I also will look for someone that can love me the way I love them. And it's my major part, like love me the way I love you, respect me the way I respect you, treat me the way I treat you kind of person. Like anything I give, you kind of reciprocate. So if I give you time, give me back time. If I give you, I don't know, like I'm not just talking about materialistic things. I'm talking about more like, mentally, emotionally, can you reciprocate what I have to offer?
And what do you think?
I feel like for me, like with a partner, I would definitely like literally agree with everything with what T said, the same points of what she said, but also for me it'd be loyalty and faithfulness, because a lot of the time it's kind of, I don't know what the word is, but it's like it's the opposite of looked down upon. So it's like praise, that's the word. It's praise to like, yeah, have a girlfriend, but if you have a side thing, yeah, that's cool as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I would want someone to be completely faithful to me, but also like T said, I want someone to reciprocate what I give, because I'm a very over loving person. I will over love people because that's just, I'm caring like that, So like if I spend my time with you, not expect, that sounds horrible, but like I would want you to spend time with me. I want you to prioritize me sometimes. Obviously, I don't want to expect you to be your main priority all the time, but if it's a thing where you're constantly being late and constantly cancelling, like stuff like that, I just don't like that. So I'd want them to kind of reciprocate the love and the attention that I give them, because like T said, I'm not a materialistic person. So all I really want is time and attention, really. That's literally all I want. So I'd want that. And like T said again, just having goals in life, having ambitions, because I find that just it makes you look like, it makes me see you as such a better person if you've got goals and ambitions and stuff like that. Like even if you don't know, just have a slight thought of what you'd like to do in the future, because I like that kind of stuff in you, like me personally.
Amazing, thanks for that. It's quite funny to think, the average sort of, I guess, stereotype is, nothing what both of you said, if that makes sense. More looking for something like mentally rich instead of like thinking maybe or financially, because that is very important for like the foundations of a relationship, because everything else, as you know, you can rise and fall in life to do with finances, to do with a job or anything like that. It's sort of your like ground morals and the foundations you have. So that's a good start. Nee is here also from Refuge and be asking a few questions.
Yeah, I think the answers you've given so far have been amazing, girls, and thank you so much for inviting me on here. I just kind of wanted to talk about what you think the difference between a relationship that is not healthy and a relationship that is abusive. Sorry. So where is that line drawn for you?
I feel like the line is drawn when there's fear involved. I feel like for someone to fear someone in a relationship, it should no longer be a relationship. And I think a lot of people are in relationships where they fear the other partner, which leads them to stay even longer than they should stay, or they feel like there's no way out, so I'm just gonna keep going until something happens or something changes. Maybe something's going to change for me, but I feel like once there's fear, that should definitely be the line.
I totally agree with you, because it might not even be fear in like a physically abusive way. It can also be mentally. Like if you fear what someone else is going to say because of the consequences of their language or like what they physically do to you, I feel like that is a very clear indicator that you need to get out. Like T said, if it comes to a point where you're scared of the reaction you're going to get off someone, if it's a constant thing where you can't say certain things around that person, or you can't wear certain things around the person because you're scared of what they're going to do, that's a very, very big red flag where you have to tell yourself you need to get out. But it's a thing where people get so scared to the point where they just don't want to leave, and a lot of the time they're just going to get abused constantly. I definitely think fear is the biggest thing and the biggest reason you should get out of a relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important that you mentioned there, like, it's not just a fear of like being physically hurt, it's also the psychological stuff, the reaction that you might get. You're scared of them shouting at you, you're scared of what they're going to say. I think that's an important addition to make. And on that note, what would you say, like, are the warning signs? Because obviously, generally, this fear doesn't just come from nowhere. It can escalate, and then you become very scared of a person and their reaction. What would you say the warning signs are when things are not okay, you know, abusive and unhealthy, kind of red flags?
Okay, I feel like if you feel like you can't speak to someone about something, that's where the line is. I also feel like if you have to change the way you behave, clearly something isn't right. If you have to stop wearing, you know, skirts, you no longer wear skirts, but skirts is your favorite things to wear. Or if you no longer hang around with a certain friend anymore because you feel like maybe it'll be looked at as the wrong way, and you feel like you can't come to them, you can't speak about this, or just don't even bother, kind of thing, because when you do speak about it, it's shut down. You're kind of like told off in a way. Or even when you are having a conversation, it's just straight arguing, so you just avoid certain things.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because if you think about like unhealthy wise, it could also mean that they're becoming a bit more unfaithful, you know, they're going out of the way to like take interest in other people. Like I find that for me would be a warning sign that, okay, you know, it's not right. But if you, like T said, if you think about in the abusive kind of thing, it could also make you question them if you see them being like physically violent with other people. So if you're around a boy who or a girl, if you're around a partner who is constantly getting into fights, or just doesn't respect, you know, people when they talk to them, just in a general conversation, that could also be a warning sign that they're just not they don't really have the morals inside them to be respectful to just any other person on a regular basis. But again, like T said, so when you have to feel like you can't wear certain things, say certain things, and all that stuff, if it's just starting off occasionally, I feel like that in itself should be a warning, because people only really start to leave relationships when it happens constantly. But I feel like if it is happening like dotted around the months and stuff, I feel like you should sit down and have a conversation with your partner, and if nothing seems to progress and get better, I feel like that's when you need to be like, okay, this is my red flag, I need to cut, because you can't stay in a relationship that's that unhealthy.
Can I just jump in a second, Lee?
Yeah.
I just want to say, girls, that it's so good to hear you having these conversations, because I'm sure there'll be people listening who will kind of understand what you're saying, or feel like they can relate to some of the things you're saying. And I think it's really important to identify that, you know, there are things that are unhealthy. So we were talking about like liking pictures on Instagram, say, for example, if you were with a guy and, you know, he was liking loads of girls' pictures on Instagram, and you then said to him, or maybe he was sending some messages that were a bit flirty or whatever, and you have that conversation, and he then goes, you know what, I'm really sorry, I was enjoying that attention a bit too much, you're completely right, I understand where you're coming from, I'm sorry. There's a difference between that reaction and the reaction of, you're crazy, you always do this, you know, this is your fault, and making out, so the unhealthiness might be bickering all the time and stuff, but then does that kind of go over to abusive when you then start being gaslighted? For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's kind of when someone makes you question your own perception of reality. It's a form of psychological abuse when someone is making you question yourself and putting it back on you, and making you think, oh, okay, is it me, you know, am I crazy? And I think that's a really important thing to kind of identify.
Because like you said, there is a clear line between the two of abusive and unhealthy, but then it's also a thing where, like, so say with an unhealthy relationship, you're bickering a lot. If someone's like calling you names and stuff, like, or like you said, like, you're crazy or you're over exaggerating all the time, not only will it make you question your reality, it will make you question your own sanity. Because I'm not gonna lie, I've been told it a lot when I'm arguing that, oh, you're so crazy, you're this, you're that, and whatever. It genuinely makes you question whether you're the one in the wrong, when really and truly, if you genuinely know you're not, for someone to be shouting and screaming at you saying, oh, you're crazy or this or that, genuinely, that's when things will start. Because that's, for me, I find that's verbal abuse. If someone's calling you names and like really nasty names and telling you you're mad, you're crazy, all of this, like, that's what I find, that's where it kind of turns into a bit more of a verbal abusive thing than just unhealthy arguing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Also, reverse psychology in relationships, I feel like it happens, and sometimes if you don't know what it is, you probably won't see it when it's happening or spot it once it's happened, because you can start off just by saying, I don't like the way you keep liking these girls' pictures. And then it goes, okay, yeah, but last week you and then all of a sudden your point is no longer valid. Your point is no longer appreciated. Your point is no longer, it's just, it doesn't matter. I'm talking now. I'm going to tell you what I don't like about you. I feel like it's like you guys are toe to toe with each other. And I feel like that's very toxic behavior. It's a sign that you need to get out, because it gets to a point where as a female, you stop complaining about things. You stop saying, okay, babe, I'm not really happy about or okay, babe, but I feel like you don't give me enough time. You end up stop saying that and you start settling and you start feeling like, okay, maybe this is just the way things are supposed to be. Especially when you're uneducated on the relationship. So especially when it's your first relationship, or this type of relationship is new to you, or you're actually taking someone seriously, you tend to not see things that you should have been seeing. And I feel like sometimes it takes third party to notice that, babe, you just tried bringing a point to him and he shut you down and he flipped it on you. Did you not clock what he just did? That's where you should also draw a line on relationships, when you can't voice what you want to say, you can't have an opinion, you can't complain about anything, because every time you complain, it gets shut down, it gets dismissed, it gets told that it's not good enough kind of thing.
But that's the thing, you know what you were saying, like how you settle. A lot of the time, especially, oh my God, especially with our age of girls, a lot of the time we do settle for less. And I don't feel like we should, because a lot of the time, like we've already said, like it's not materialistic stuff. So when you find yourself having to settle for what you're getting and having to like keep everything in like bottled inside, that's also another warning sign. If you're trying to communicate and the other one doesn't want to, and you're just having to keep things quiet and having to settle for the way that person treats you, I feel like that in itself is a big red flag for you.
100%. The things that I feel like we settle on is stuff like you said, not being able to voice your opinion. You shouldn't be in a relationship if you feel like you can't have a say on certain things. You shouldn't be in that relationship if you feel like every time you've got a point or you're not happy about something, it's dismissed. You shouldn't be in a relationship if the person's not giving you enough time. You shouldn't even be in a relationship if the person isn't giving you space when you ask for it. You shouldn't be in a relationship if you feel like emotionally you're given more than they're given, or physically you're given more than they're given, you know. And I feel like sometimes when you're already like, let's call it too far in a relationship, it's like you're just like, oh, it's okay, because at the beginning it was all right, so maybe the end will be all right, maybe this is a little blur, this will soon be over. And I feel like that's also settling, you know. He's treating you wrong by he's not giving you enough time. We just dismiss it. We just end up saying, oh, you know what, it's all right. No, I feel like that's also classed as settling to me. I feel like you're settling for someone that doesn't appreciate you, someone that doesn't, tell you you're beautiful or treat you how you're treating them.
Out of interest, girls, do you think that these are exclusive to romantic relationships, or do you think these kind of warning signs could be important to recognize in friendships and like platonic relationships as well?
Yeah. I definitely do, because oh my God, with so many friends settle for the lack of attention, because you know there's been a lot of times where I've made plans with people, they just don't show up. It's like, if you're going to make plans, prioritize. And a lot of the time we just think it's with relationships, but you have to think about it with like friendships as well, because there's been so many times where people just settle for the lack of, you know, communication, the lack of attention, the lack of, you know, all of this respect. And a lot of the time we just push past it because they're just our friends. But if you genuinely consider that person to be a close friend of yours, or just a friend of yours in general who you respect, I feel like we just brush it off so easily because they're just friends. You get what I'm saying? With relationships, obviously it's an issue, but with friends we brush it off all the time. And I definitely noticed that with like our age, we brush it off all the time. But it's a thing where you have to recognize we're constantly making plans with that person, and they are constantly at the last minute cancelling, or they're constantly being late, or they're constantly not showing you the attention. I feel like that in itself is just disrespect, and we brush it off a lot of the time with our friends. So actually, yeah, that's a good thing you said that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, not only just friends. I feel like that also goes for like parents as well, because it's a thing where if you're not giving me anything, whether that's emotionally, mentally, physically, in our relationship, and you're always late, or you always got attitude, or you never admit when you're wrong and stuff like that, I also feel like that's something to consider cutting off as well. Because what is it? We're just doing this because we're biologically related. Like friends, I have certain friends that I no longer talk to or chill with because I feel like emotionally they ain't there for me, or emotionally, I'm always there for them. They can ring my phone at any time in the night, answer, or listen, I need help. I'm always there, advice all the time, every time. And I feel like it got to a point where I had start appreciating myself and saying, if you was in a situation, which one of these people would you call? And it came down to none of them. You don't give me anything emotionally. You don't give me anything physically, mentally, spiritually. So why am I here breaking my back for a relationship with you, withholding a relationship with you, if you're not really my friend? You're always late. You never have time. You're always, I don't know, picking other people over me, or you know? So I just learned that it doesn't even matter relationship wise. It doesn't matter friendship, parents, you know, cousins, I don't know, like new people at college, it doesn't matter. It's not, nothing's ever compulsory. You don't try to force these relationships if they're not really given back to you.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think perhaps if you look at your friendships and like your platonic relationships, and then you look at your romantic relationships, you could see kind of the boundaries that you expect from both people, both like sets, groups of people are similar, or do you think they can differ?
I feel like they can differ. Like I mentioned, like often with friends, we kind of just brush it off. Well, I mean, I used to a lot, but obviously now with relationships, because we have certain expectations of, with me at least, I feel like I want to receive exactly what I give. So I have the expectation that, yeah, my partner's going to do that. But with my friends, I kind of brush it off a lot of the time, because for me, a romantic relationship is like my priority, because that's, you know, we're a team. Do you get it? But with friends, it's more of a thing where, yeah, we're friends, but it's not really a thing like we're a team together. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like I brush it off all the time. But if I think about it, if say a romantic partner is late and my friend is late, it's both of those people are going to affect me the same way. It's going to annoy me the same way. It's going to upset me the same way, and it's going to make me think different of them two in the same way, if you understand what I'm saying. So sometimes I really have to think to myself, is this friend really relevant in my life? And like T said, it goes for family members as well. With my family and with other people's family, they're very flaky people. There'll be certain expectations that they can give you attitude all the time just because we're blood related, if that makes sense. Like, it shouldn't make a difference whether we're blood related or not, because really and truly, if you as a person, you need to see me as a person as well as a family member, if that makes sense. So just because we have that title, it doesn't give you then the right to be nasty to me, be late, not prioritize me. It does not give you the right. So I feel like a lot of the time we need to start seeing people as genuine people rather than a friend or a partner or a family member, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, definitely. Your answers, both of you, have been just so thorough, and yeah, really, really good points made. So like, would you know what to do if you felt like unsafe in a relationship, or if you think something wasn't right?
Honestly, I'd say no. But because I'm someone that's so like, when I had workshops come to my secondary school about domestic violence, about relationships and stuff like that, I actually listened. I know some things. For example, there are people that you can call there. You can talk to your parents, your school, your friends and stuff like that. You are allowed to speak up. I feel like it's not really clear what we can and can't do.
No, I 100% agree. And it's also like, I agree, like when people used to come to our school, and obviously when I was in secondary school as well, you know, counselors used to come and people like that. But then it's, and obviously I talk to them, but then it's also a thing where if you think about it in a relationship sense, or even if you're like like best friends with someone or a family member, it can be to a point where things are so toxic, you're too scared to talk. So sometimes in certain situations, I wouldn't want to talk to people, and I wouldn't feel like I knew what to do because I'm scared of what's going to happen. But say, like, with myself right now, with the respect I have for myself, with the facilities and resources that I've got right now, for me, like, let's say theoretically something like that did happen, I feel like, yeah, I would, if it wasn't a big thing, obviously I'd probably talk to like my youth workers, I'm quite close with them, or I talk to like my mum or something, because I'm obviously really close with my mum. But then it's also a thing where, say it's a partner or a friend, I wouldn't then want those people to think badly about that. Like, say my partner, for example, I wouldn't want them to think badly, so I wouldn't say anything, if that makes sense. So a lot of the time, conflicting, because at the end of the day, I will forget about it, but those people won't forget because they can see it from the outside perspective, if that makes sense. So it just depends on the situation. Sometimes I wouldn't want to, or sometimes I will.
If you felt like, if you felt something was worrying you in your relationship, or you felt like something's not right, or they'd done something you thought was maybe violating, or...
I probably honestly tell my youth worker. I'm not gonna lie, I probably tell you, Amani.
Same.
Advice.
I'd tell someone from my youth, because I feel like as someone that's been in a relationship, and my parent, not my parent, a family member has already like said, it's not going to end well, or it's not the right thing to do. It's like you can't even go to them anyway, kind of thing. So even when things do go wrong, it's like, oh, like I need to go to you for advice, but I can't go to you for advice because you predicted this. You said this was going to happen. I'm just going to have to bottle it. But nowadays, because I do have a fabulous youth, I would genuinely go to my youth and talk about it 100%.
Also, because like I mentioned, you don't want people to think badly about that person. When you start off in a relationship, at least with most of us, we're obviously bigging up our partner, like, yeah, he is lit or she's lit, like all this stuff, just trying to big them up and basically sell them to your friends so that they like them. So then if you turn around and are like, oh, he did this or she did that, it's like you don't want them to think that about them, because they will never forget as your friend. Like for me, I will forget half the stuff my partner would do. My friends will never forget that. So it's a thing where I'm grateful now to have really, really close relationships with my youth workers that I can tell them, because they're there to be there for you and to give you advice and stuff like that. So I would feel like now I would definitely know who I'd be telling.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, obviously. Feel good that because it's a very good testimony to youth workers as well in general, just the fact that us as youth workers build such close relationships with the young people we're working with that it feels like so natural to even talk about like how we do in our girls group, like relationship, family chats about our friends. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm happy that you'd both sort of engage with me and fellow youth workers to talk about issues like that, because I really understand what you're saying in terms of once you do break that barrier and talk to sometimes your friends and stuff, a lot of young people that have come to us before, they have that fear that they might use it against them, or they might sort of remember that, and then when you're at a good place, it could have just been an argument. They could
they'll just automatically think bad about that person just because of how they'll on the outside will see how upset you are and see how distraught you can sometimes be. That's something they will never ever forget.
You are now listening to Project XX Cast podcast series.